NFL draft nerds, welcome in. We have got Dane Brugler's top 100 NFL draft board for the 2025 draft class. I'm excited to get into it. Dane Brugler is my favorite draft analyst out there. He's the guy I read the most, try to listen to whenever I possibly can. And his top 100, it's filled with some prospect. I mean, none of the names are surprising in the top 100 in my opinion. Um, Maybe the order of some of the names, where some of the names fall on the list. Some guys that he's higher on than I am, that he's lower on than I am. So we're just gonna dive into my top takeaways here and get into it. So I really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, it is all draft all the time here at Rogue Football. So please like and subscribe. So gonna get it kicked off at number 3, like 1 and 2. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, absolutely here for it. Jaylen Walker at 3. Georgia linebacker slash edge. I recognize Jaylen Walker's physical traits are incredibly appealing. I'm also aware that scouts believe he's got like some of the highest football character in this class. And there's moments on tape where you talk about him in pursuit. It's incredible. Moments where when he does convert a pass rush move, an offensive tackle just can't even get their hands on him, can't even get close to him. So I recognize those things, but I think you're talking about somebody who's going to have to go to a defensive coordinator or defensive coach that has a very specific plan in mind for him, and that plan is going to have to accentuate what he does best. And I think you've got development as both, if you're talking about a linebacker or talking about edge. I think it's raw in both regards, but you see the pursuit, you see the athleticism, the insane closing speed, and you want to say, man, what could we do with this guy? I get it. But for me, I just see too much refinement needed at both spots and question marks about maybe his ability to really stick at off-ball linebacker. Question marks about his ability to really play the run at edge. It's a tough foil for me. And so I'm much lower on Jaylen Walker, but I absolutely understand the potential that's there if he lands with the right coordinator, the right defensive coach. And it's not just somebody that knows how to use his skill set. It's somebody that will enable Jaylen Walker to develop more of a pass rush skill set. He's got the raw physical tools, but I don't think he has the refinement, the technique. So 3 is way too high for me on Jaylen Walker. Way, way too high. Arman Mimeau at 8. It's so funny. Like, for a while, I was high on Arman Mimeau compared to consensus. Now, I think there's folks that, like Dane thinks he should be top 10. I have a hard time seeing that. You go back to, and look, he had a great year. Great year. But I don't think he's like an elite athlete. He does have good length. And he plays right tackle. But you go back to seeing him against a player like Michael Williams in 2023. And look, Arman Mimeau was 19. I think Michael Williams was 20. They were both very young. But he physically could not match up with Michael Williams. Go back and watch that tape. It was about as bad as it gets. And I remember watching it during summer scouting for Michael Williams and wondering, gosh, who is this kid that he is absolutely destroying play in and play out? Right? So that's a foil for me. Getting that out of my head. Michael Williams physically dominated Arman Mimeau. And so while 2024 was like almost perfect tape in terms of just efficiency and production, I still think that, and he did it against good players, right? He absolutely did. I can't get that out of my head. And so I think he should be top 32 for sure. I think he should probably go mid to late teens. maybe early 20s. I have a hard time valuing him in the top 10. Like, to me, that's reserved for players who I think are elite. And, maybe you don't get that every draft class. There's a number of players I feel much better about their projection than Arman Mimeau. A number of players that are lower on Dane Brugler's board here. Talk about Mike Green, the edge out of Marshall at 12. This is early for me. Tremendous pass rush skill set. He does not play with consistent power. Yes, you saw him, run through the face of Josh Connerly. But he does not play with consistent power. Mike Green doesn't. I don't know that he's going to be great in a run defense capacity. And I think, as much as arm length isn't the end all be all, it's not. It does matter. And when you're small with short arms, it can be difficult. And I think Mike Green is going to be a very impactful and disruptive edge rusher. To have him at 12 above some of these other prospects just doesn't make sense to me personally. I don't think he's going to be a high impact 3-down guy. I think when you are trying to get after the quarterback, Mike Green is going to be absolutely awesome for you. You also have to say, well, if he's just a 3-4 outside linebacker, because that is his best projection, how much experience does he have dropping? Not much. So it's an interesting foil with him. And the guy I always think about when you talk about not having the arm length you want is Aiden Hutchinson. But Aiden Hutchinson, comparing him to Mike Green, it's not a comparison. I mean, Hutchinson was a huge hulking presence who was also a great athlete and also unbelievably refined as a run defender and pass rusher. It's just, that's not a comp. So talk about, well, I've seen him compared to Nolan Smith out of Georgia. Nolan Smith is a banshee against the run. His ability to set the edge is unbelievable. It's remarkable. It's something that you have not seen from a prospect like Mike Green. And to have Mike Green ahead of Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan, Malachi Starks, DB out of Georgia, that is outrageous to me. I'm not trying to disparage Dane at all. I just don't get it. Will Johnson has pretty much had teach tape at Michigan for most of his career. Malachi Starks, you can say the same thing, and he played a lot more in the slot this year. I think if he was just exclusively playing safety, maybe better results overall. But these are two guys I have easily in the top 10 and ahead of a lot of the guys in between, where Arman Mimeau and Mike Green are. So it's low for me. That's about as low as I've seen either of those guys. I don't get it. And I did see last week, and we talked about it, Matt Miller from ESPN predictively had Malachi Starks falling to the second round. I'm telling you what, if Malachi Starks falls into the 20s, somebody should be trading up for him, without question. Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M at 53. That's really low for me on him. Like, I think he just played too big this year. He's still a very young prospect. I think he's just 21 years old. He put on too much weight this year. I think if you watch his high moments at Texas A&M combined with his consistent tape at Purdue the year before, I don't know how you don't value this guy much higher. I mean, I think he should go in the first round. I consider him in the same range as a guy like Michael Williams. I consider him above Mike Green. I think you're getting a 3-down player who has unbelievable flexibility, and I think he's going to probably play in the 270 range, 270, 275. He was playing at over 280 at Texas A&M. Length, athleticism, physicality, strength. I mean, he's got it, and he's got a nice pass rush skill set. He's got, again, flexibility, rare flexibility at his size, and a devastating inside spin. I don't follow him being that low. And I know that I've heard it consistently. The NFL is lower on him than a lot of draft media, but it doesn't make sense to me. Tyler Shuck at 59. Now, this is just one I love to see. I haven't placed him on my big board because I haven't gotten through enough tape of him Um, but what I have seen of him and what I saw at the Senior Bowl, this guy just kind of has some really intriguing traits. I think he has all the arm strength, the arm talent. He just kind of has like a natural feel about him at the quarterback position for doing some of the minutia stuff that a lot of the guys at the Senior Bowl didn't. Whether that be, play fakes with play action, whether that be being able to catch the ball with one hand with a bad snap, throwing off platform really effectively, throwing different arm angles really effectively. I like him a lot, and he is an older prospect. But in a world where Brandon Weeden went in the top, 25 overall, something like that, you're telling me Tyler Shuck can't go on day 2? I think he should. I think he's actually maybe the best swing in this class. If you could get him late second round, third round, this range that Brugler has him, I'm with it. I've been mocking him to teams on day 3 because, that's kind of where draft boards have him. But I would understand taking a swing on him day 2 if you believe in his traits, which I do. Darius Alexander at 67 is too low for me, and I get that he's kind of a late riser, somebody who... But you watch his tape, unbelievably effective against the run at 304 pounds. He has great length. He has a bag of pass rush moves. He has the ability to set you up really well, and he did that at the Senior Bowl so well because he went back and he studied the guy's tape at night, his opponents for one-on-ones. And somebody who brings that type of work ethic, the technical refinement with his hands against the run, the strength, the athleticism, I think Darius Alexander should be a first-round pick. And so I know I'm going to be higher on him than a lot of folks, but I think whoever gets him, if they get him after the first round, they're getting an absolute steal. Prince Mimeau at 75, same thing for me. I don't think he's as refined as a Darius Alexander, but obviously not the same position. Edge versus an interior defensive lineman. And I think Darius Alexander can play pretty much across the line, across the defensive front. Princely at edge, though, 264, 34-inch arms, 6'4". He has all the measurables, and then you watch the tape. He's a dynamic pass rusher, incredibly dynamic. And I think with a little bit of coaching, he has, top 10 potential at the position. I think he could be absolutely dynamic, and I think he could be a 3-down player. To me, he should be a first-round pick. Obviously, you've seen and heard some things about maybe maturity, and if that's the case, it is what it is. But based off the tape and the traits, I think that Princely Umanmielen is a top 32 prospect. Again, I don't know about anything off field. I'm not saying he's done anything wrong off the field, but just like maturity, work ethic, those types of things. I don't know about that. I've heard some things about that, but just off the tape and the traits, he's a top 32 prospect for me. Jared Wilson at 83, the Georgia center. This is awesome because I really value him here too. I have a day 2 grade on Jared Wilson, and he just doesn't have a lot of experience. He only started 1 year, but his movement skills at center, very impressive. You don't see him getting overwhelmed with power at all ever. I think he can be a starting center in the league and maybe a really good one. It's just that you would have liked to seen more than a year of tape on him, but I don't think there's any reason Jared Wilson can't be a prospect you draft as your center of the future. And depending on how quickly he gets it going for you once he gets into your building, he might be able to start this year. We'll see. I'm a big fan of his game. Tez Johnson at 89. I think that's just too low. And Dane says it, 10 pounds lighter than Tank Dell. He's an outlier. He absolutely is. But I think his skill is an outlier as well. Like his unbelievable speed and pace that he can play with, his quickness. You get him with a creative offensive coordinator playing in the slot, I think that he's going to have a tremendous impact at the NFL level. I think he should absolutely be taken way before 89. I think he should be a top 50 pick. And yeah, I'm usually the guy that's like, well, he's too light, but people invoke some of these other names that you see and that are super light, and most of them were just like burners. They weren't like real route runners. They weren't technicians. They weren't as physical as Tez is. They didn't have as consistent of hands. I think he's the total package outside of size. And so you throw him in there in the slot, he's going to be able to bang with some of those guys, nickel defenders. Obviously, you're trying to avoid him getting rocked by a linebacker going across the middle or a safety, right? But he can be really dynamic with the right coordinator. And really, any coordinator who's worth their salt, get him in situations where he's not getting pressed, which usually you're not going to be pressed when you're playing in the slot, and he's going to be just fine in my opinion. And then final note here, Olu Oladejo or Femi Oladejo. I've seen it both ways, but his full name is Oluwafemi Oladejo, the linebacker turned edge rusher from UCLA. I loved his game at the Senior Bowl. Went back and watched some of his tape this year. He really pops. High energy, length, strength, explosive off the ball. He was able to win a lot of one-on-ones, even though he's not super refined. I think you take him like Dane has here in the 3rd round, and you have the chance to have a diamond in the rough, which I know 3rd round is fairly high value, but I think at worst, you're getting a rotational guy, and at best, you could get somebody who develops into a really good starter because, like Dane says, his best football is in front of him. And you see the flashes, you see the Senior Bowl. It's pretty exciting. So those are my top takeaways from Dane Brugler's top 100. We've got the link in the description below to that top 100 over on The Athletic. Again, I think Dane is among the most plugged in and certainly among the best at doing this in the business. So I take to heart everything he says, but we're not always going to agree on everything, so that's all right. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe, and y'all have a good one.